welcome to another episode of the Dragon Yawn. I'm your host, Sifu Mike.
I'm Robert Aldrich.
And we're coming to you today from Tactical Kung Fu and Mixed Martial Arts. The Matt's of Tactical Kung Fu and Mixed Martial Arts. I'm just going to point to his logo and his shirt because I'm always getting mine wrong. I'm going over here, and it doesn't work that well because there's nothing over here but, like, man boob.
Officially, that's where the communicator for the Federation is supposed to be in TNG, I think.
Yeah, and see, we're following that same kind of color scheme, which means he's going to die in this episode.
No, because we're not TNG. Because we are in TNG, because then it's the gold guy.
It's the gold guy? They switch it? Okay.
Yeah, because command is red in TNG.
I should know this much better than
no
I do.
one should
since
know
I
this.
like that Vol Clan is my thing, you know.
Which is the original series where the red guy would die. So really, guess what we're getting is, he's safe, I have a 50-50 chance.
Exactly. Depending on which television show you're in.
Right.
And so, like I said,
the important thing is at least we're in Star Trek.
Yes. And I don't know if you guys can notice, but we look a lot brighter. Okay, because this is the first episode. We have a lighting rig now, so you can totally see just how little hair he has.
It's true.
Yes, and so
and how little sleep we get.
we're both on the tired side, man.
Yes. He runs off coffee. I run off 5-hour energy shots.
Pretty much. So he gets it in very small amounts. I get my caffeine in quantity.
He just straight lines it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So at some point we're just gonna.
Exactly. I got my coffee cup right here.
Aye.
And so, anyways, that is the introductions to this place. Now, I want to talk about a little bit of news because today is Sunday, so the 29th. All right, I want to talk about Friday because Friday, two big things happen, which are really cool. And honestly, gosh, it might even be like Wednesday by the time I post this. So, like, you know, old hat, old news. But we're still going to talk about it because it's really cool.
True.
So, on Friday, what happened, you know, Quippy, Spider-Man is back!
Ah, yes!
He is back in the MCU,
True.
and the thing is, if you don't follow entertainment news at all, you're like, where'd he go? Alright? But, short end of the story is that negotiations broke down between Sony and Disney. Spider-Man left the MCU. Sad day for all of us.
It's true.
Because of the way that the last movie ended.
Yeah.
It was like, dude, how are they going to follow up on this whole storyline that they set up without him being in the MCU? And then he came back in.
It's true. Regrettably, a whole bunch of us are really disappointed that we're not going to get the new Marvel movie, The Night Monkey, starring Tom Holland, which we were all really hoping for, nevertheless.
Did you see the trailer for that?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that was great. That was absolutely great. The whole Night Monkey thing. But yes, he is back in the MCU. They
Thank goodness.
Struck a deal. And honestly, I think it was a matter of Sony talking with Marvel and them hashing it out because Marvel and Sony are actually good. A lot of people jumped on like the defense of Disney. I'm like, those guys do not need to be defended. I mean, I think even a Spider-Man writer was talking about how he didn't understand how everyone was thinking that Disney was somehow the underdog in this whole scenario.
Yeah.
They're not, man. They probably, they own Lucasfilm, which is Star Wars and Indiana Jones. They own Pixar. They own Marvel, of course, and then they have their own animation studio and their own live-action thing. Okay, they're doing all of that simultaneously.
Hang on. No, you're scratching the tip. You're scratching the tip of the iceberg. You're barely getting it. They own Capital Cities, which means they own ABC. That means they own ESPN. They own.
And they just bought Fox, so they have all this IP they haven't even touched.
They bought 90% of Fox. That's where things start to get really, really complicated. Nevertheless, the point is, Disney owns about a third of everything. Yeah. Which means Hasbro and Nintendo need to be very worried.
I mean, I wouldn't be a bit surprised. I didn't run the numbers, but I'm pretty sure, I'm willing to bet that Disney made more money in this past year, which is not over yet. Disney made more money in this year than Sony has made in the last decade. All right, so you know, we're talking Spider-Man was their highest grossing film ever at Sony, and it only made like 1.2 billion, and like Disney has been popping those out like every other weekend.
Well,
like
Sony for the last couple of years, or for a while, the PlayStation was carrying Sony. Like that was their video game department was the only thing that was turning a profit. I don't know if that's still the case or not, but
Yeah, and so I root for I'm going with Sony on this one because Disney seems like a bad guy. This is the same company that a year ago thought it was a good idea to fire James Gunn over some tasteless jokes that he made a decade earlier. All right, and he apologized for those, and they could have like capitalized on that and said, "Hey, look how far he's come. Look at all the good things he's done."
That was a fun thing.
Yeah.
If you want to know more about it, you can Google it. I strongly recommend Bob Chipman's breakdown of that whole situation. He goes into detail about how that went down and how very crazy that was.
Yeah, and that wasn't Marvel, because Marvel was basically like, hey, we're just going to sit on the Guardians of the Galaxy movies because they're not going to get made if James Gunn isn't making them, right? And so they were going to sit on that. That was all Disney. Okay, and the backlash from the fans and even the cast were like, hey, we support this guy.
Yeah.
And so he finally came back on board, but it was too late in the production cycle to actually get the Guardians of the Galaxy 3 going before Suicide Squad. And so,
yeah, there's a lot of complicated stuff in there, but what's important, though, is none of that is what we're here to talk about today.
Exactly.
We're here to talk about a better movie.
Yeah, but, well...
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to throw out there that Spider-Man is back, and you know, even though he never really left. I mean, they still haven't started production on that, but you know, I honestly think that since Disney has bought so much stuff, that like in 20 years, it would not surprise me if they bought like the country, like we're not the United States of America anymore. We're the Magic Kingdom. Okay, and they started putting like Disney characters on dollar bills, and so you have like Goofy on the face of the $2 bill because why not? That's funny. And then you have like Mickey on the 20 and Minnie on the
$5 with Donald. Yeah, I'd be down for that.
Is it Donald or Daffy or
Daffy? Warner Brothers.
Is Warner Brothers?
No, Scrooge has got to be on the 100. Come on.
Scrooge is. But is he Warner Brothers or is he
Scrooge? Scrooge
Disney?
is Disney.
He's Disney. See,
Disney.
I gotta get all my ducks in a row, guy. So
I feel like I should have seen that coming.
I know, right? I set this whole joke up just for that.
Well done.
Yes, just for my duck joke, right? But anyway, so that was the first thing.
Yeah, you can duck off.
Hey, duck you, man. Oh, that's how it's pronounced. It's pronounced duck. Other duckers. That's how it's pronounced. Anyways, so the second thing that happened on Friday, which I think was pretty cool, is that Google, according to Google, is 21 years old. That was its birthday, all right? Google is 21, and if you need to confirm that, Google it, all right? Because Google's the one who told me. So they're actually old enough to drink. You know, they're 21. So can you imagine an intoxicated Google?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean that would be awesome in my opinion. You guys like massive autocorrect fails from the get-go. Yeah. Be like, man, I typed in martial arts, not marital farts. You know, it's like.
I don't know which one of those would be more useful.
I don't know, man.
I've had to put up with some marital farts.
Yeah. But can you imagine?
I hope my wife doesn't watch this.
Oh, I know, right? But can you imagine like Googling like hair care and getting results for Bugs Bunny and Robert Aldrich? Again, this whole thing was the setup for that joke.
Well done.
All right, so I'm done now.
Excellent.
Let's talk about what we actually are here to talk about.
Yes.
After 9 minutes of me just joking around, we're here to talk about Mortal Kombat,
which we didn't even practice that.
I know, right? Because we're that awesome. Okay, and so we're going to talk about the films today. Mortal Kombat is a huge franchise that spans a long time, man. Yes. I didn't look up when it actually began because
92.
92, awesome. We were talking about the films, and the first film that came out was in 95, right? And then another film came out 2 years later that
we ain't going to talk about
exists, right? First movie totally awesome. Second movie totally exists, and actually, I am going to touch on that just to start with to get that out of the way, because that movie essentially did everything wrong that a movie can do. I mean, it was basically quality-wise, it was on par with the first season of Power Rangers. As far as like the visuals and everything, and even the fight scenes. It was just.
No, I don't know. The fight scene underground between that involves Sub-Zero and Scorpion. That's a decent fight scene, but that's about the end of it.
Yeah, and that was a minute out of a 2-hour-long film, I think it was.
Yeah.
And that was actually a pivotal scene in the entire plot line, and it was like almost a throwaway scene.
Yeah.
You
know? It
know?
involves none of the principal actors and characters.
Yeah, well, only 2 of the principal actors actually returned for that film. That's how bad it was. Not even the director returned for that film. It has a 2% score on Rotten Tomatoes. It's that bad. You know, after that long, since '97, it has a 2% score on Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, there is very little good about that movie.
Yeah. Which is amazing because it comes from a pedigree of one of the best video game movies ever made, and I say that without any irony, without exaggeration. It is one of the best video game adaptations that has been made.
Yeah, I will say after the 3, there are really only 3 people, notable people, who returned for the films, and that was Kung Lee, Katana, and the dude who played Reptile actually played Sub-Zero in the next film. Okay, and so those are like the 3 main people. But other than that, I mean,
Keith Cook.
Yeah.
Played Reptile in the first movie, not Ray Park, as a lot of people seem to think. Ray Park was only involved in the second movie, and it was principally as a stunt double.
Yeah.
He played somebody, but he was mostly just a stunt double for Robin Cho and the guy they got to replace Christopher Lambert for Raiden. Like, when Christopher Lambert is your marquee actor and he doesn't come back, you done messed up.
Yeah, I mean, that's a film where it's not even worth talking about the actors in it. I mean, I'm sure they're all great and talented, but the single best thing about that film is that it was in focus. Yeah, so everything could always be better, everything could always be worse. It's always how you look at it that depends whether or not you're happy in life. So I choose to look at the fact that I can look at it.
Also true.
Yeah. So that's all I'm going to say about that film.
Thank goodness.
Moving on.
Mortal Kombat.
The first Mortal Kombat, which was great. I mean, it's got I think 49 or 50% Rotten Tomatoes. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, Rotten Tomatoes doesn't matter.
The soundtrack, all right, was, I think, the first soundtrack to go platinum. Right? It's back in '95, so there have been plenty of soundtracks that have gone platinum, but I think that might have been the first. But
you're saying the first soundtrack to go platinum?
First soundtrack.
Okay, I was
not
like,
the
that's
first
not
album.
the first,
No, first soundtrack.
Pretty sure Thriller did that.
Specifically, yeah.
Or Saturday Night Fever.
It does features a lot of really great songs. I think it's a precursor to dubstep being the background music for like fight scenes. Like if you watch Deadpool 2, you know, he talks about how he loves dubstep, and they use that dubstep music as a background like needle drop for his fight scene with Cable. I think this movie is where that started, with the whole electronic beats and everything backing up this kind of fight scene stuff.
Well, there's a couple of things about the soundtrack that are really fun. It was composed and put together by George Clinton, not George Clinton of P-Funk fame from Parliament Funkadelic. It is not that George Clinton, which is an ongoing urban legend. George S. Clinton, I guess I should say. He's a composer and film score maker of some acclaim. He's got an accomplished list. He worked off of the Utah Saints, who did the original Mortal Kombat song, where you get that scream from and all of that fun stuff. And he took that and remixed it, and he's the one who injected a lot of the electronica, a lot of the dance music approach to it, because in early tests, the traditional music just wasn't resonating with the crowd, and he said, there's a fan base for this, they know dance music, they know this electronica stuff, we got to put it. For those of you who don't know, electronica was a precursor to house music, EDM, and dubstep. And so that's where it's coming from. So yeah, it was George Clinton's work. Again, not P-Funk, as much as that breaks our hearts.
The soundtrack also featured a song. I forgot the name of the band who does it. It's it was used on almost every '90s B movie that came out, and it was I think Halcon or Hollycon plus
Halcyon.
Yeah.
Halcyon.
And so like that was not only used in the first movie, but used to the same effect as what it was in Hackers, who came out the same year. Used like as the end thing, and so like that song is very much like the '90s B movie song. And that was the same year. They did it in the same way, probably not even talking to each other. Actually, I forgot to mention, 1995, massively good year for movies. So much so that I'm not even going to try to list the movies on there. Just go to like any like IMDb or Wikipedia and look at the movie release list for I keep saying 2009. I don't want to admit that I'm old, but 1995. It's amazing. There is so much. Like I was reading through it, and I was like, man, I've seen that. I think I would have gotten broke. I actually had money in '95. But I remember I saw most of those films like later on, and that's just like they don't have release schedules like that nowadays.
Batman Returns?
Huh?
'95, was that Batman Returns?
Batman Forever.
Batman Forever. Okay.
Which still wasn't bad, but it was going
Batman
there.
Forever's great. I love Batman Forever.
Decline.
Going back to the soundtrack, the soundtrack's also going to represent with the first release of music by Tracy Lords. She's going to have control on this soundtrack. That's the music that Liu Kang and Reptile have their fight to, which is a really good scene and a really good fight. The soundtrack and the score both really, really good, and and that's one of the things they leaned into, the idea that we're not making a movie and we're going to sprinkle it with some video game references. This video game has an established following, because this was a very, very not just popular video game, which it was, but also a visible video game. This was the first video game to spark the ESRB rating system because of gore and violence in a video game. I mean, there were congressional hearings concerning this video game.
They actually took some of that stuff out of the movie because they wanted the PG-13 rating.
Exactly.
But the next movie that they're coming out with, we'll talk about that later, that is not. They're going for the hard R, man. They're going to put everything in there. Speaking of gore, actually, the director...
Paul Anderson.
Yes. He, after doing the first film, he actually went to do Event Horizon,
which is a Hellraiser movie without Pinhead.
Pretty much, and like it is super freaky, man. I thought it was just. I don't remember when I saw it. I know I had to have been kind of young because it came out in '97, but I remember being totally creeped out, and I was not expecting it to be sci-fi horror. I think it was like sci-fi thriller or something like that is what it was billed at, but it was horror. Yeah. And part of that credit, though, also goes to Sam Neill, who was a freaking amazing actor. And he was in that movie, and like I said, freaked me out.
Yeah, I feel like they didn't explain to Sam Neill that this was a horror movie. I think he thought it was a drama, because he really, like Lawrence Fishburne, he really brought his A game. And
and it shows, and it's like, oh my gosh.
Which is really weird, given the subject matter.
But like that movie actually, it's the second movie in the Mortal Kombat franchise being so bad.
Mortal Kombat Annihilation, we should say, just to give you the title.
That movie was what prompted Paul Anderson to actually not only do the Resident Evil franchise, but to stick with it. Like, that man has either written or directed or produced every single film in that franchise and had a hand in that franchise because he didn't want that franchise to end up like Mortal Kombat did. And so,
funny how that works.
So I thought that was kind of interesting as far as that is concerned. Now, that movie was... The first one was made on a very small budget, like $18 million, where I think worldwide it made over $122 million. So it was a huge success. And still, I think, in the top 5 video game adaptations for movies, which
it is
saying something.
Yeah, it really is one of the best adaptations. Like, it's going to go up there with... I'm now starting to think, because I actually really like the Super Mario Brothers movie, and I'm like one of the only people. It's not good.
That came out in '93, 93?
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah.
But things like Doom, the Street Fighter adaptation, which is better than people give credit for.
Yeah, and that came out in 94, but
Yeah.
it didn't make as much money.
No,
Interesting tidbit. The character of Johnny Cage was patterned after Jean-Claude Van Damme, and they wanted him to play that role in Mortal Kombat, but he turned it down so that he could play in Street Fighter.
Right.
And honestly, after seeing Mortal Kombat, I don't blame him because, like, at the time, he was very much he had a persona, and he didn't want to make fun of himself. Whereas if you watch that character and the things that he does, he's kind of a dick. And nowadays, I think Jean-Claude would actually go for that character that makes fun of himself, but he probably wouldn't back then.
Well, that's the entire idea behind the Jean-Claude Van Johnson or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Which, did that ever actually come out?
Yeah, that came out online.
Oh, did it? Okay, cool.
I
want to see it. I was more interested in
not YouTube. It was
what's her name? Rasheed Wallace?
Hulu series? Or maybe,
but
it's out there.
Okay. But yeah, Van Damme. Yeah, this was also peak cocaine addiction. Poor guy. So that weighs in.
But if you notice, like, the similarities within those characters, not only are they have the same initials, J and C, but in the movie, the guy actually does a split in an upward punch. I mean, that is like, you couldn't be Jean-Claude Van Damme anymore.
No.
And the fighting styles that he does is really representative of Jean-Claude Van Damme with the karate and Muay Thai type stuff.
So one of the things about Mortal Kombat was the video game, when it was created, the idea behind it was, in the wake of Street Fighter II and a bunch of other video games that had come out, they thought, everybody is here to play the special maneuvers, so why do we bother having different characters? Let's have the same character with different superpowers, and that's going to affect things. So the video game, you have 7 characters, Raiden, Sonya Blade, Liu Kang, Johnny Cage, Sub-Zero, Scorpion, and Kano.
I love that he's counting on his fingers, but he's doing it where the camera can't see it.
Well, yeah, because I'm trying to play it off. So you've got these 7 characters, and their basic moves are all the same. It's just their superpowers are different, except for Johnny Cage. Johnny Cage was the one person that had the additional power. The drop into the split and punch him in the balls.
Yeah, and in the video game, the character Reptile was basically a amalgamation of Sub-Zero and Scorpion. Like they just put the two together, painted him green, said here.
Yep. If you're not familiar with the character of Reptile, again, in the video game, he was a hidden character that you could not access unless you got double flawless victories and a fatality on one specific stage. And if you double flawless victories, meaning you lost no life, and performed the fatality, you would then get the chance to fight Reptile.
Yeah. You know, and the video game was very much, that's what people wanted. They wanted the fights. Whereas the movie, like the plot line, basically it's people fight, but they, like in a nutshell, it's like one realm has to win 10 tournaments for the right to have these portals be open so they can invade another realm and try to conquer it. It's just a reason for people to fight, and I do think that's where the movie kind of lost people, because like they focused a whole lot more on the story than the actual, like, hey, let's have people fight. In fact, Paul Anderson, when he first started, he actually didn't know how to shoot a fight scene, and Robin Shou. I should be able to speak Chinese a whole lot better, but I don't, because I can't even really speak English. Yeah, I got one language, can't spell half of it, can't pronunciate the other half.
I saw that coming a mile away, and I still wasn't prepared for it.
Because I used the same joke over and over again.
I don't think you've used that one before. Well, not on Dragon Yawn.
Okay. But
which means you need to come to Tactical Kung Fu and MMA and get this quality Kung Fu jokes.
Yes, exactly. The inside jokes that you won't actually get.
Precisely. But Paul Anderson.
So he didn't know how to film a fight scene. Like, Robin Shou was talking about how the first fight scene he filmed, he did all wide shots, right? And so after a few takes, like all the actors and stunt doubles and everything, they were exhausted. And he came up to him and said, hey man, you realize how they film these things? They do close shots and they do jump cuts and everything like that, and they mask the actual hits and everything like that. And he's like, oh, and so it became a whole lot easier. And actually, after the first test screenings of the first movie, since they were kind of low on the action, it didn't test that well. So they were like, we're going to add in 2 scenes. So that scene where he fights Scorpion, it's extended, like where in the original cut, whenever he does that jumping sidekick, he's supposed to kick him and kill him and that be in. But instead, in the movie, you see him go into a portal, and it becomes a whole nother fight scene. All right, the guy who actually choreographed that was Robin Shou. And the second one was him fighting Reptile, right? And so those things were added and choreographed by him. But here's the crazy thing. Apparently, because of his background in Hong Kong in those kind of movies, he added in Wire Fu, all right? Now, The Matrix, if you go way back to our other podcasts, that's kind of credited as the first American film, first Hollywood film to be using Wire Fu. Well, this was 95. He used Wire Fu. It's just, it wasn't, I guess, not
widespread.
As... Yeah,
it certainly wasn't polished.
And it wasn't as popular, I think, as The Matrix became. And so nobody picked up on that.
Well, and it's also, the Mortal Kombat was 2 or 3 years before Jackie Chan is going to bring Rumble into the Rumble of the Bronx. That's going to be a watershed moment for American cinema. That's going to be the Hong Kong invasion. It's going to pave the way for The Matrix. And Johnny Cage versus Scorpion is going to be one of the best fight scenes we're going to have prior to the Hong Kong invasion. And Robin Shou is going to be very, very... He's going to incorporate a lot of elements into this movie, like the Wire Fu, like he's talking about, that are down the line going to become staples. The jump cuts, that's going to heavily inform the way American cinema handles action for a decade.
Yeah, now it's all one continuous shot.
Yeah.
You see some things that are like, we want to get this in as little takes as possible to show off how awesome we are at choreography and planning and stuff like that. But back then, they were like, okay, 10 takes of being hit in the side, you're going to have some broken ribs.
Right.
In fact, there were a number of injuries that happened. Interesting thing, a bit of casting information that I learned when I was doing my research. After they couldn't get Jean-Claude Van Damme to play Johnny Cage, they actually had Brandon Lee attached to play that. And he was originally going to play that, and the only reason why he didn't is that he passed away before production. Sad news. We could have had Brandon Lee play that character, and that would have been freaking amazing.
That would have been fun.
I think the movie would have been totally different.
It would have sucked if they'd cast him as Liu Kang, or as Liu Kang. It would have sucked. Like, he really needed to play Johnny Cage.
Oh yeah, and he would have played it so well too.
Yeah.
So well. But yeah, when I found that out, I was kind of like, let me roll another tear. Because that was huge opportunity missed through unfortunate circumstances. And so, now, that's a good segue into the actual fighting scenes that we're talking about. Now, I really do like the fight scene between Liu Kang and Reptile. What's interesting is that fight scene and the one that you were talking about, the two best fight scenes in the film were actually choreographed by Robin Shou. Everything else was done by Pat Johnson. Now, we've talked about Pat Johnson before because he's the same fight choreographer for the entire Ninja Turtles franchise and for Karate Kid, and I think, honestly, every fight-oriented movie that came out in like the 80s and 90s probably had him attached to it. He's credited as the fight coordinator, right? And I honestly want to say that's more of like, okay, you go over here and you do this and you do that. It's not actually maybe going down the actual moves, but he's on there, and you know, he does really good work from time to time, so I'll give him credit where it's due, man. But he was not responsible for those last two fight scenes, which were the best fight scenes in that film. Now, most of the martial arts in that film is not related to the actual video game, whereas most of it you see is like karate and taekwondo oriented. The kung fu aspects that you see are stuff that Robin Shou brought. And so that's really cool stuff to watch, especially when you consider that, especially in the later versions of the video game, they really did make a concerted effort to pattern the movements of their characters after specific movements within fighting styles. So one of the best media representations of Dragon style Kung Fu is actually in Mortal Kombat. It is the secondary fighting style for Sub-Zero, but they use aspects of Dragon style for other characters throughout games throughout the years. I think they're on number 11 now or something like that, as far as like video game releases.
Because at 10 they rebooted the franchise.
Yeah, so there's a whole lot, but like Sub-Zero's main thing is Shotokan karate and Dragon style kung fu.
Which, if you're not familiar with those two, are very different.
They're very different, but you can still mix them to great success. The thing that I want to talk about is the dragon style kung fu, because hey, we're all about some dragons here, man. And actually, a dragon is the symbol of the Mortal Kombat series, so they're all about the dragons too. What's interesting is that in the movie, they don't do anything that really is representative of actual dragon style kung fu. Like everyone knows, like the hand position is going to be like the main thing you see. You don't see that in the movie. There is this kind of zigzag Z-stepping pattern that they do. You don't see that in the movie. A couple other things. I had to write these down because the thing about dragon style kung fu is it's more of a Southern style kung fu, so not a whole lot of kicks. So it does kind of fit. That's why he has the Shotokan karate to get the kicks in there. With Dragon style, it's a lot of hand movements. It's a lot of hitting and trapping. There are a lot of quick breaks. Let's see, I wrote this stuff down. Oh yeah, very much more fluid. Okay, it actually starts off kind of rigid and hard, but as a person goes through repetition, they get that fluidity and speed. So that's one of the things that is highlighted within the Dragon style. The other thing that I thought was interesting that I came across is their breathing pattern. They breathe normally like most martial arts do, but when they breathe out, instead of making that yeah, yeah, yeah kind of thing, they do actually kind of make like a hissing sound, like you do see that in the fight scene with Reptile and Liu Kang. But Reptile does it, but I think he's mimicking the stance he's making is a snake type stance with his hands and everything. That is very obvious snake. Snake style isn't even in the video games, right? So that was just thrown in there for the movie. Reptile, snake, we'll do that. But
sure,
the hissing sound isn't actually snake. It's more of a dragon thing.
If you're familiar, for the Grievix in the crowd, people who are familiar with hardstyle breathing, breathing behind the wall, that some karate styles are familiar with, that's what we're talking about. Where you clench your teeth together, put your tongue against the back of your teeth, and expel out while your abdomen is tight. That's the dragon breathing. It's also called hardstyle breathing for the Pavel Satsulan people in the crowd.
Yeah, so every once in a while we do actually get some people who are knowledgeable about martial arts, and then we get other people who are just knowledgeable about the movies and the video games, and this is their martial art. I'm going to work my thumbs really well.
Hey.
Yeah. So
professional gamers make more than me. I ain't going to knock them.
Yeah. Professional anything, that means you get paid to do something. There's only difference between amateur and professional. Professional, you get paid to do this. So technically, I'm a professional mixed martial artist who has never lost in a cage.
Technically, that is true.
Technically, this is for just going by the words.
Yeah.
Right? I get paid to do martial arts, and I've never had a cage fight.
It's true.
And so
Which means you are undefeated.
I am undefeated.
Words as written. Yeah.
That's how awesome I am. Never lost in a cage.
Regrettably, I have gotten lost in a cage. There was one time and I couldn't figure out which one actually had the door, so I couldn't get out. Anyway.
I kind of wish I would turn the camera around so you can actually see the rest. This is an actual cage you would fight in.
Yeah.
And so what you're not seeing is the door. We have a door right over there. And so you can see what we're talking about.
And it's real obvious which one's the door.
Yeah, it is very true. It is very, very
anyway.
Very obvious.
But, yeah, so...
You can't find doors and I walk into them, so...
Yes, well, I had some joke about putting foot in the mouth, but...
We're awesome martial artists, guys.
Oh, yeah. So, going back to the movie, God, it's so good.
Yes.
The really solid cast. Christopher Lambert plays Raiden, whom I don't think he had any idea what he was doing. I don't think he had any grasp of the movie or anything. I think he was just he showed up because somebody dangled a sandwich in front of him, and he's still fun. He's great.
Actually, no. I think because the story that I read was that because of his price tag, they were only going to get him in certain shots in Hollywood, like because they filmed mostly in Thailand, which was interesting because that's very obvious. It is Thailand, but they say, "Oh, it's China." No, it's Thailand. He actually paid for himself to be flown out to Thailand to shoot in location, and also even paid for like the rap party and stuff like that afterwards. So he's a nice guy.
Yeah.
But he infused his character with more comedy, which again is something that I think it's a stroke of genius and something that should have been followed throughout all of the movies, because in all honesty, if you have movies who are going for a certain level of realism, the human characters need to react appropriately to seeing a big freaking monster,
right?
Or magic or whatever. Something where somebody is just kind of like, that's weird. It's like, honestly, that didn't happen at all. And nobody reacted to the fact they have like this 10-foot tall dude with freaking 4 arms, and it's just like, why does he have 4 arms? Nobody comments on that.
Yeah, Lyndon Ashby is the guy who played Johnny Cage. He tried, and he's not a world-class actor by any stretch of the imagination, but he is a lot of fun in this movie. And despite common belief, he did not learn martial arts just for this movie. He has a long history in martial arts, independent of his acting career and independent of this movie. Going back to Christopher Lambert, yeah, he, for those of you who don't know, he is legally blind. And so that's, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's part of why, especially in like the 4th Highlander movie and some of the other movies he's done, he has this tendency to just kind of stare off into the distance. It's because he literally can't see.
I thought that was an actor thing. I thought it was like, okay, you're going to be here, I'm going to look that way.
No.
I'm going to talk dramatically to nothing.
No, I don't know.
Over there.
I don't know if,
This
I
is my
believe
good
it's
side.
macular degeneration, which means that at different points in his career he could see better than others.
Huh.
But I don't know where he was at this point. But yeah, he's legally blind.
That's like the whole acting of William Shatner. It was like the hesitation. Everyone thought that was like a great acting thing. That was just him forgetting his lines.
Yeah.
That became a thing. So that's probably where that came from too. Like, I'm going to stare off into the distance. Not because I can't see you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a dramatic thing.
So, but the MVP of this movie is Hiroyuki Tagawa. He plays Shang Tsung. This is genuinely one of the best villains in cinema. You want to talk about leaning into a Blofeldian mustache twisting just bad guy. He is great, and he is a very good actor on his own right.
I would say Raul Julia was up there too.
Yeah, he was, but that's Raul Julia.
I
Raul
know.
Julia.
I could watch that man read a phone book.
Yes, Death of the Spider Woman, Addams Family, and you can go to hell. Addams Family is a great movie, and that is a great performance as Gomez Addams.
On a different note, have you heard the Thing theory?
The Thing theory.
Yes.
No.
So Thing in Addams Family is just a hand. Okay, it's specifically the same kind of hand, the same side that was cut off, that Luke Skywalker had cut off. So that was the theory, is that is actually Luke Skywalker's hand.
Oh,
is that not awesome?
Oh Lord, that's terrible.
That's awesome.
That would explain how he can jump and float. Oh gosh.
Yes. That's a fan theory.
So yeah, Hiroyuki Tagawa. His name is Hiroyuki. That's his first name. Tagawa is his last name. Now, interesting fact. Did you know that Mortal Kombat takes place in the same universe as Sabrina the Teenage Witch?
Wait.
So to promote the second Mortal Kombat movie, which Tagawa was not in,
as well as like most of everyone else.
Yeah, he was in an episode of Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and he plays Shang Tsung, who is Sabrina's uncle. And so there's a crossover episode called Get Over Yourself. And
goodness.
Which means that Sabrina the Teenage Witch is also, I believe, part of the Archie comics, which means Riverdale and Mortal Kombat could do a crossover episode. So CW, you need to get on that.
Wow.
Yeah. Melissa Joan Hart and Hiroyuki Tagawa.
I'm making a clip of this thing. That's going to go viral because I didn't know. I don't think anybody knows that.
Oh yeah, it's a fun episode too.
Yeah, I would love to see that crossover.
It's fun. I don't know, as fun as any episode of Sabrina was. I didn't care for it particularly, but
only made better by Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
But everything's made better by Mortal Kombat.
But I will say this: everything is made better with Hiroyuki Tagawa. He is great. He is terrific. And boy, he's good in this movie.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
So they are making another Mortal Kombat movie. I don't know if it's. I think it's a reboot.
I would
guess it's a reboot, and it originally was. I mean, I thought was going to be directed by James Wan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and for those of you who don't know James Wan, he is the same writer for Aquaman and for the Saw movies. Actually, he's directed a number of the Saw movies as well.
Which forget for a second the horror movie and all that component. Just the visual language in those movies are a lot better than people give them credit for.
It's not just the visual language, but the guys who do horror films, they know how to get an emotional response out of the audience with just the pictures, with the words, whatever, with what they're showing. They know how to get the emotional response. That's why some horror directors are actually really good in other genres, and you see evidence of this all the time, like the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans, and James Gunn actually cut his teeth doing horror first, right? And he made this awesome comedy of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's an action comedy kind of thing. So these guys are really good at being able to, I guess, manipulate your emotions and get that emotional response that you want from being able to watch something visually. Now, he's also the director of Furious 7, which I believe was the movie that Brian, whatever his name is, he played Brian, but he passed away. Paul Walker, that's what it was. I had to think about it. And
I kept wanting to say Paul Vanderhooven. I don't know where the hell Vanderhooven came.
Paul Walker. And so I think that's actually the highest grossing Fast and Furious film.
Until Hobbs and Shaw, which is apparently just terrific. You need to see that.
Yeah, well, have you seen it?
No.
No, man, they totally do not take themselves seriously at all. And
Idris Elba versus The Rock?
Man, it's enjoyable to watch.
Bet.
It really is. And so, but he did those films. He was the director on that. He is not actually directing this movie. He is just a producer along with like 5 other people. And so that doesn't quite inspire confidence in me. The guy they got, wrote it down, is Simon McQuaid. McQuaid. If you've never heard of him, it's okay. He's only ever done commercials beforehand. So I'm not saying not a bad thing at all. I mean, you got to think there are, like, Michael Bay, I think, did nothing but music videos before he made like massive blockbusters and made stuff that made a ton of money that some people don't like. I mean, I still think that most of his movies are really good. In fact, he is the one of 2 directors that I purposely have seen everything in their filmography. And I did that only because I was looking at IMDb one day and realized, I've accidentally seen all but one of his movies. Let me go see the other one purposely.
What was that one? Pain and Gain?
No, I saw...
No, okay.
That was accidental. I forgot which one I saw to complete the set, because, I'm a collector at heart, so I'm like, I have to complete the set.
Yeah.
The other one was Kevin Smith, who, 1995, came out with Mallrats, which nobody watched.
Really?
Yes. Like, dude, that's a massive, I'm serious. Check out a list of the movies that came out in that year. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, I would have been at the theater every single week. But, anyways, he's doing it with a large cast of people who are practically unknown. I think the only name that I'm aware of is the guy who played in Supergirl, the TV series. And he plays... Gosh, it's... Olsen, no?
Jimmy Olsen.
Jimmy Olsen, thank you.
Oh, they're getting him?
They're getting that guy.
That's a shame. I loved him as Jimmy Olsen. That was great. Anyway.
He might do a good job.
I don't doubt that he'd do a good job. I just liked him as Jimmy Olsen.
The the only thing is that I know they're going for a hard R,
Uh-huh.
right, and they're going for action heavy.
So is he gonna play Jax?
Yes. So I'm hoping that they go with the whole humans relating to monsters and magic appropriately, and then leaning into the action heavy, which I've heard the fight scenes are going to be great. So they're going to lean into those two aspects, as long as they don't lean too much into a very convoluted story, which only exists to give their characters a reason to fight.
Yeah.
Right. That's the whole thing.
That's the thing about a lot of these movies that you'll see. People talked about this with Pacific Rim, and people talked about it with G.I. Joe. Apparently, the second G.I. Joe movie was really quite good, but nobody knows because I didn't watch it. That's after the first one. Why would they? I mean, at a certain point, this is a game based around titillation. It's a game that's meant to be the video game aesthetic of a B-rate movie. It's meant to have the visceral reaction of horror and slasher and all of that stuff. And so to have a convoluted plot, to have a character study, really wouldn't be appropriate for these stories. And it would be, if you want to make that, that's fine, that's good. There's story there to work with, but that would be a different genre, that would be a different IP. Mortal Kombat needs to be guttural. And it sounds like that's the direction they're going to go, which I think is really good.
I definitely wish they would add some humor into it.
Well, yeah.
I think that would also make it more like palatable.
Mortal Kombat never took itself seriously, or at least
like
it
the
shouldn't
games.
have.
Yeah. The movies.
Oh god,
definitely
the games
more than
definitely
they
didn't
should
take
have.
themselves seriously. Because Christ, by the time you got to Mortal Kombat 3, they had 900 characters. You had, human smoke, cyborg smoke, exhaust smoke, secondhand smoke. It was ridiculous.
Fortunately, 3 came out, I think, right after the movie did. So the movie
3 came after Annihilation.
Yeah. Well, note that because Annihilation borrowed aspects of 3. So
true.
the
That's
first movie borrowed majority of its aspects from the second video game and the first one.
Yeah.
Whereas it didn't borrow any aspects from the third. So I think the third game might have come out at the same time or just after, because they did borrow a lot of aspects from that iteration into the movie that nobody
you're right,
saw.
because they had the cyborg ninjas in the second one, didn't they?
I'm sure we'll talk more.
How the hell do you make cyborg ninjas boring? Like,
I mean, like I said, that film did everything wrong. If you look at the fight scenes, it's all hard to classify them as fight scenes because they're just dancing around.
However boring you think it is, us talking about this movie, it is more entertaining than the movie. Like, it's not like the fun bad, it's not like the train wreck bad, it's just...
Yeah, it's kind of like you watch the fight scene, you're just kind of like, quit trying to hit him and hit him.
It's not even that. You don't care if he hits him.
Yeah.
Like, it's that bad. Okay, this is as bad as it gets. There is a two-girl mud wrestling fight, and it's boring.
I remember that. Yeah,
like that should be an easy lob over the plate, and they still manage. And
yeah, that's literally low-hanging fruit.
Fascinating fact about that fight scene is it was shot in the desert in the winter, and they didn't realize that it got cold.
Oh my
and so
God.
you got these two women who are in not as much clothing as they should be to be the characters that they're in mud in winter. So it's like 50 degrees, 40 degrees while they're shooting this fight scene. And as soon as the director yells cut, they go and grab blankets and get behind heaters. Trainwreck. That's the second movie, sorry, that we keep harping on for how bad it is. We're trying to warn you people. Don't watch it.
Yeah, I mean... The DVD version I have of it actually came with the DVD of the first film.
They literally couldn't give it away.
But the thing is that my DVD actually was kind of broken, so the first 11 minutes of the film was cut off. Like my player skipped it. Every player I had skipped the first 11 minutes. Didn't affect the movie at all.
Nope, not a bit.
Didn't affect it. The only thing that happens is Johnny Cage apparently gets killed.
Yep. And it's poorly done. So an interesting note that is elements of these movies are going to go forward. There's going to be technically 4 series.
I love that you're counting on your fingers.
No, this is just a placeholder for me because because this is the 4 Horsemen. So Arn Anderson for life, yo. So, but there were going to be 4 series that are going to come in the wake of these movies. There's going to be Mortal Kombat Conquest, Mortal Kombat Defenders of the Realm, Mortal Kombat something of martial arts, League of Martial Arts. If you haven't heard of that, you're doing all right with your life. And then the last one is going to be the Mortal Kombat Internet series, which some of you may know. We're going to be talking about those later. We're going to be talking about those on future Dragon Yawn podcasts. But because we just want to talk about this one because this really is. It is a beautiful slice of 90s filmmaking.
Oh,
it is a beautiful slice of pre-Hong Kong invasion filmmaking. It is a beautiful slice of fantasy action. It is a beautiful video game adaptation movie.
Yeah, it's really one of the best. So like I said, in the top 5,
and it holds up well too.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen a list that includes the Detective Pikachu.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's true.
Yeah, so I think it's like number 5, and number 1 is actually the first Lara Croft. Is it Croft?
Lara Croft.
Croft. Shows you my level of geek code right there.
That's not a very.
I mean, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the second one. The second one had James Wan in it.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, So here's the thing, and I think that's a great point on, is that movie, the first Lara Croft movie with Angelina Jolie. So that's actually a pretty good adaptation of the video game, but it's not a good movie.
No.
It's fun-ish, but it's a good movie.
Adaptation.
That's the thing. Mortal Kombat is a good movie. It's a B movie, but it's still a good movie. So this is probably the first video game movie where they stuck the landing on, if you know nothing about this game, if you just got drugged here by your friends or your husband or something like that, and you know nothing, this is a complete and functional tale. And you're solid, and you're good, and it is well made, well executed, and you got everything you need. If you know nothing about Mortal Kombat, you're going to have a good time. If you know everything about Mortal Kombat, boy, you're just going to be tickled.
Yeah, so it's a good one as far as like 1995 goes, and it's a precursor to the Hong Kong invasion. You can actually see like the groundwork being laid there, even though it's not as credited for using like the wire fu and some of the same aspects that you would see later on.
Very
so
true.
The film is very good, very underrated in my opinion. Like I think the 49% Rotten Tomatoes should be a little bit higher. The 2% for the other one is perfectly fine. And still quite impressive that it is that bad, guys.
And yet it didn't get nominated for any Razzies.
No, it didn't?
No, it didn't.
Really?
I don't believe so.
Well, it was so bad it didn't get nominated. That's a whole nother level of being awful, guys. If MTV has nothing for you, then...
Especially these days, jeez.
Gosh, man. So, but yeah. So that is the Mortal Kombat world. Like I said, the Dragon style is one that is prevalent within that, and even though it's not quite represented in the movies,
see a lot of it
in the video games later on, and it's one that is utilized by a lot of players. So there are different elements of it, and so it's pretty cool. All right. So, you have anything else to add?
No, just remember that Riverdale and Mortal Kombat take place in the same universe. So CW, I'm looking at you. Make that happen.
Yes, definitely. So,
you got to do something with that supernatural money because this is the last season.
Oh yeah. Okay. Cool. All right, guys. So, hope you enjoyed this. This has been another episode of Dragging Out. We've been talking about Mortal Kombat. We're going to talk about some more Mortal Kombat later on, but we specifically talked about the films. And like I said, hope you enjoyed it. You know, if you did, be sure to like and subscribe, okay, and share. And
click the bell so you get the notifications.
Yep. And you can check us out on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And you can go to my website. They're all tkfmma. Okay, every single one of them. The website's tkfmma.com, and then all the other ones are /tkfmma. So I'm like big on the tkfmma. That's actually the acronym for Tactical Kung Fu and Mixed Martial Arts, located in Durham, North Carolina. All right, I'm Seafood Mike.
I'm Robert Aldrich.
Yes, and we'll catch you guys next time. Take it easy.